Okay, let's get started for this morning. So let me just get my presentation up. Okay, so my topic is for today is going to be co-teaching and planning. And this is really going to focus on making that partnership, or what we like to laugh about in our school as making the marriage work between two co-teachers. So I guess to begin with, we always want to really think about what co-teaching actually is, because with the many teachers that I've worked with over the years, I think different people have different perceptions as to what co-teaching actually even is. So I'm just going to take a little look at what co-teaching is actually defined as. So when two or more educators co-plan, co-instruct, and co-assess a group of students with diverse needs in the same general education classroom. So I think the key is those colored words there, is that it's not just co-planning, it's not just co-instructing, and it's not just co-assessing, but it's all of those things connected together. You're all responsible for that same group of students. I found this one here, and this is the one that really hit home with me. So I wonder if you guys can also connect with this one here. So co-teaching is really a lot like an arranged marriage, where two adults are responsible for a group of children, and it does become a little bit like that family unit. We spend so much time together, both inside and outside of school, sharing spaces, and it really does become a dependency on each other. So I wanted to share that with you guys, because my experiences with co-teaching, the more experienced and the more comfortable that I've become, I feel like this is probably a better definition for me. It's the marriage, but it's not always that partner that you choose for yourself. So it is the connection to the arranged marriage. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm really going to be stepping you through what I see as the beginnings of a co-teaching relationship, all the way through this one here. So here's my little attempt at this one: when co-teacher meets co-teacher. So the start of a co-teaching relationship. As you enter into any co-teaching relationship, you start your first date. It's really important to get to know each other and to be super honest with each other before you get started into your journey or your relationship. My number one tip with anyone starting co-teaching, whether it be the beginning of co-teaching for them or whether it be a new teaching partner, it's get off campus, go for a coffee, go for a glass of wine, but really step away from the school environment and really spend time to get to know that person. Not only getting to know them as a teaching partner and their likes and dislikes and their needs and wants within a classroom, but really just getting that comfort level there from the beginning. What are the things you like? What are the things you don't like? What bothers you? So I've gone ahead and I've made a couple of these slides here. And typically when I start to meet my co-teachers for the first time, these are some of the questions that we might sit together and talk about. Obviously, you don't have to go through question by question there, but at least by starting this way, I think it eases things and it gets the conversation flowing. So where they're from, how long they've been teaching, have you been international before? Have you been a co-teacher before? Because over my time, I've found a lot of teachers have not done this before, and their level of comfort isn't as high as what it is for me. What do you like within your classroom? You know, it just like in any marriage or relationship, it can be really frustrating to be working with someone who enjoys just the chaos and the mess of a classroom when you're someone who likes to be super organized. What's your tolerance for noise? What are your routines that you like in the classroom? And now at this stage of it, I would say that you don't have to agree on all of these things. This is just an open sharing of what you are as a teacher, so that you're entering into this relationship with the other person knowing what to expect. just like in a first date there. It's really important to be yourself at this stage. So again, here's a few more questions here, but typically when I've done this with my co-teachers, we're sitting there pretty solidly for an hour, at least getting to know each other in a pretty relaxed environment so that we then know what to expect from the other person. I would say this piece on communication is also really important because not everybody wants to be dealing with work calls on the weekend. Not everybody wants them at night. Some people, a WhatsApp is a no-go for them. That's something that's for their social or their private life there. So it's important to get through and get these things out of the way to begin with. Okay, the second date. This one's a little bit more formal. And I would say this is probably up to your school, but this is something that we found really great to use at various times of our co-teaching journey. So at my school, we use this Dimensions of Co-Teaching rubric, and we do it at multiple times of the year so that we can track our progress as teachers and as a co-teaching relationship. So at the beginning of the year, we sit down together with this rubric, 2 different colored pens, and we kind of mark where we think as a relationship we fall in each of these categories. So roles and relationships, attitudes, planning and development, delivery of instruction, assessment of student learning, and evaluation of lesson effectiveness. It's a really great talking point there because you're going to find at the beginning of it that you're very strong in specific areas. You maybe have an amazing relationship, but you haven't got the assessment piece, or you haven't quite worked out the planning piece of it. This just kind of guides you in your journey on what your focus area is. You can come back to it in another couple of months and really think, have we grown as teachers? Have we moved? But I love having something as concrete as this so that we know where we're at as teachers, but also our leadership team knows where we're growing together, we're working together, or potentially we're not working together. Okay, the third date. This is kind of where you get into the thick of things here, and it's really starting to map out where we're going in this relationship. Do we have time for each other? When are we planning? Has the school built in planning time, or is it not enough for us as a teaching partnership? Sometimes what school has given me with my planning time for my co-teacher is plenty, but sometimes with other co-teachers, we do need to find the time. So if we are finding the time, where are we going to do this, and what are our next steps? So this is kind of the sitting back and, you're into it a little bit, and what are we going to be doing? The real deal. So you've gotten to know each other, you have used the rubric, you've looked at what your strengths and weaknesses are, you've really thought about what exactly you're going to be co-teaching, and you have that planning up and going there. It's now kind of time where we start to look at different co-teaching models. Now, at our school, we were very, very lucky to have the support of Ginny Rojas coming in and supporting us through the beginnings of our co-teaching time. And she really stepped us through the different co-teaching models. So I have a link on here that really clearly outlines all of the different co-teaching models there. But just to give you a very brief rundown on these things here, I would say, are we looking at models where one teacher is leading, one is supporting? Have you split the class in half and you're each doing different activities? Have you split the class in half where one has taken a higher group, one has taken a group that maybe requires more scaffolds? So there's a number of different co-teaching models there that you can work your way through. And as a relationship and as a partnership, it's really important to go through and think, one, what are we already comfortable with? And what are the ones that we kind of gravitate towards? And also we need to look at what are the needs of our kids? Do they need that whole class instruction from 2 of us? Or are there occasions where one person is better used with breaking off with small group instruction? Or are we better in doing rotational activities? So it's important as you go on in your journey together to continue to review those co-teaching models to really ensure that you're happy, your students are happy, and you continue to adjust to what's going on. And this one here is where we really get into kind of the thick of the relationship. I think this one is kind of always the problematic piece, is planning. So as you start your journey as a co-teacher, I highly recommend thinking about what your planning model is going to be. Many teachers tell me that they can function with just chat, and on a daily basis, they can talk to their co-teacher and quickly come up with a plan for the next day. I'm not one of those people, and my school doesn't operate that way either. We like to really sit back at the beginning of units, and we think clearly about where each of us can be best used across a whole unit. And then from the beginning of the unit, it's just like in a household where you have your chores list. We really know what each of us are responsible for, and we know in advance what we need to prepare for. We have an assigned place for those things to go, and it means that it lessens the bickering and the drama between co-teachers as well, when you're very clear on the same page and it's written in a document who is doing what. So I'm just going to, okay, so can you guys see the planning document up on the screen now? Yep. So I'm just going to give you a little example, for example. So if I was going into one of my grade 3 classes here, where we're teaching writing workshop, this is just a simple example of the overall unit planner that we look at the beginning of a unit, where we map out each of our mini lessons that we have. And this is our beginning piece here. So we go through, we map out what our lessons are, and then we roughly try to break it down into dates, mini lesson, language targets, and then the learning supports and teacher responsibilities. So this is just basically the roadmap to our unit. So when I'm doing this, at any stage, I can go in here and I can take a look for the next couple of weeks what my responsibilities are. And I can also take a look at my co-teacher's responsibilities. Again, this is not the big, detailed, every single thing going on here, but it's the overall roadmap here. So we have an idea of what to expect from each other. We can go further on these ones here. We can add links and we can add all of our details here as we go through the unit. But this is kind of the beginning of our planning, to just to have an idea that when we go through it, it's fair for each other. We've got a balance. We've looked at different co-teaching models. So if I scroll through, you can see sometimes it's Ellie taking lead, sometimes it's me. And then as we go further on here, there's more and more where we start to do some things together. But we love this planning kind of setup here, just as that rough draft, so that we have our heads around what to expect for the whole unit. Again, it's up to you and your teachers to decide what it works best for them. Okay, now this is really the big one. It is an arranged marriage in many ways as you go through, or an arranged partnership. Not all schools allow you to choose your co-teachers. So it's really important that you deal with conflict in a very professional and thoughtful way. In my experience there, it's so important just to be upfront and honest. I'm not talking about being aggressive or picking on other teachers or anything like that, but if you don't like something, it's really important to voice those concerns early before little small problems become very big problems. And these final two things on this slide, no matter what, in front of students, you're a peer, you have the same rules, you have the same expectations, and above all, you're always speaking positively about each other. If you get into a situation where you are starting to complain about the other people, and students or other teachers get a vibe of that one there, you're destined to fail before you even get into your relationship. So really being careful with disagreements, it's a big part of co-teaching. I would say as you go along, at my school, as I said, we use that NFI Dimensions of Co-Teaching rubric. And as we go through the experience, sometimes I've had the same co-teacher for 2, 3, 4 years. And it gets to that stage where we've done all the models, our planning's amazing, it's all our relationship is ticking all the boxes, but you kind of flatline there. So this is a stage where you can really start to think about sparking things up and what else you can do to take things to the next level. So whether it be technologies or different co-teaching models, maybe it's for some schools, like we started with doing co-teaching just during our literacy blocks. So to up things a level, we went from literacy and we moved that into more of our PYP integrated units there rather than more standalone units. But it's really a time to have some fun with your co-teacher. The more comfortable you are and the more you're moving along there, the more that the kids are going to gain out of this. And really, this brings us to, you can really live happily ever after with a co-teacher, should you follow the steps of any kind of relationship. It's taking things slowly, it's having a plan, it's working together, it's all of those basic things. So I hope that some of these things have helped you if you're starting your journey on co-teaching, or if you're looking at setting up co-teaching in your classes at your school. Some of those documents have been really, really helpful for new teachers there to really build relationships. And I would say for anyone starting that journey, co-teaching can be so amazing for teachers, learning from other teachers. And it's so amazing for kids to get knowledge from 2 different teachers. And I think in my experiences, the one thing that I would say is it just built amazing relationships with other teachers. Like you really get a great friend out of it if you can make this work there. But again, it is work. Carve out the time, have things in writing, and really be thoughtful about the co-teaching relationship. Don't just turn up to the classroom every day and expect it to happen naturally. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to you guys now, and I'm just wondering whether you have any questions or you want to have some sharing time about what it actually looks like at your school. So I just thought I'd have some guiding questions here. What is the process for co-teaching at your school? Do you get to choose your co-teacher? Do you co-teach at all?
I'll start. So in my school, there's no co-teaching, but we do have, because I teach ESL, EAL, I do have teachers come in who are helping me out with translation or, things like that. So, but that's more on a casual basis or need basis. However, I think this topic is quite interesting because you never know where the wind takes you.
That's exactly right.
So I think it's for me, this was more or less a new topic. And I just wanted to listen to your presentation because, like I said, you never know where you're going to end up. So
absolutely. It's a big thing in schools, isn't it?
Yeah. So thank you for the presentation. It was great. Great.
No problem at all. And yeah, if you do ever end up in it, as I said, I highly recommend those rubrics and that starting point there. I was so lucky that our school brought in Virginia Rojas, and she just provided so much training to get us into this process. I don't think any of us had ever realized just how much work goes into co-teaching before you actually start teaching with the kids there. But the more work that does go in, it really does help.
Yeah, I think it's quite a big one, especially if you have a bit of a personality dynamic difference there. Like you said
Absolutely.
right from the beginning, it's so important to get to know your buddy. Yeah, so I don't imagine myself co-teaching yet. Perhaps once you're faced with the reality, you will have to adapt. But yeah, I think all the people who co-teach are great. Because it is a full-time job.
It is, yeah, but there
A
are
full-time job.
a lot of benefits as you go in there.
Yeah.
What about
That's
the
true.
rest of you? Do any of you guys co-teach, or it's more of a pull-out situation? Yeah,
I'll jump
Erin?
in.
Sure.
So I'm currently at a brand new school, the first year of a brand new school, starting up the EAL department in primary. So it's just me covering KG to grade 6 at the moment. So no co-teaching in that sense, in that I think one of the biggest things I take from your presentation as well is about there is no co-teaching without co-planning. And so for me, whilst I collaborate a lot with my colleagues right now, and we share students and we plan for those students, there is no co-planning and we're not in the same classroom often. But my previous school, for the previous 5 years, I was co-teaching that whole time. And I loved your presentation. I really relate to the kind of analogy of a marriage. I really liked that you talked about the first fight as an inevitability. And I really relate to that and think some of my co-teaching relationships, we should have had that disagreement sooner. And actually we were both really trying to protect each other from conflict, from disagreement. We just wanted to keep everything nice.
Definitely.
And as we know, keeping things nice doesn't, lead you to transform a situation.
So small as well, where you're just like, actually, I don't really like the way you organize those things there. And it's, yeah, you're right. Like, why didn't I just say that at the beginning?
The question that kept coming to my mind, and I wonder if you've haven't had any experience of this, is in my experience, my arranged co-teaching marriages were also, it was bigamy. I was having a co-teaching marriage with 4, 5, 6 people at once. Right. So it's easy to frame that investment in the early stage of a relationship between 2 people. But when you are having those individual relationships with multiple people, and they may all be part of the team, and we may all be teaching the same curriculum, but slightly differently. I just wondered kind of if you got any gems, anything you've learned along the way to kind of make that work.
Yeah, I think we definitely have this challenge here as well. I've been lucky enough over the last couple of years that at least my co-teachers have been in the same grade level. So at least we're covering similar content, and you're just kind of dealing with people, different styles of teaching and planning and whatnot. But we did start it thinking very naively that the 3 or 4 of us could just plan together and it would all just naturally work. And then it really did become that relationship where you can't have 4 people in a relationship, because what's happening with the 2 of you in one class is not happening with the 2 in this one. And it became a bit of drama. So I think it is just really carving out times and being really just really purposeful with your planning time. Like sometimes we only have 15 minutes, and ahead of time, it's like, there's nothing nice about it. It's like, sit down, plan, get those things done there so that we can make the use of it. And I guess any time that you can beg from your leadership team in service days or release days or things like that, because I think that document, the planning document that I showed you, I think front loading a unit and getting an idea from the beginning of what everyone's roles are, that minimizes all of the time of planning along the way, because you're just kind of looking at one cell to say, Ellie, have you got all of that ready to go? You know, do you need me to do anything else? Or, you know, Rebecca, that didn't really work last time. Like, I don't want you doing that same thing there. So I think that the front loading of planning helps the more teachers that you have, because even if you're working on different grade levels, if you kind of all have that template from the beginning, it should work out.
Thanks, Rebecca.
No worries at all. All right, I think we're pretty much at the end of our time here. And I know some of you are going on to present after this. So I wanted to say thank you guys for joining me, and I'm looking forward to seeing some other presentations later on in the day. All right.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you. All right, I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.